So welcome to our next keynote address. I am very happy, very honored to have Professor Sari Hanafi with us today, who's going to give us his talk on toward post-COVID-19 sociology. It's something that's intimately important for the discipline, I think for disciplines beyond sociology. I think it's something that's very important for the future of the world. Something I've tried to argue through my own work on COVID is the important role that sociology and the social sciences have to play in understanding this pandemic. So understanding where we're going after this is really something essential. So I'm really very, very happy to have Professor Hanafi with us. Let me read a brief bio here just by way of introduction. Sari Hanafi is currently a professor of sociology, a director of the Center for Arab and Middle Eastern Studies, and chair of the Islamic Studies program at the American University of Beirut. He is also the current president of the International Sociological Association. Recently, he created the portal for social impact of scientific research on the Arab world. He was the vice president of the board of the Arab Council of Social Science. He is as well editor of IDIFAT, the Arab Journal of Sociology. Among his recent books are Knowledge Production in the Arab World, The Impossible Promise with R. Arvanitis, and he is the winner of the 2014 Abdel Hamid Shoman Award and the 2015 Kuwait Award for Social Science. In 2019, he was awarded an honorary doctorate by the National University of San Marcos, the first and the leading university in Lima, Peru. So again, I'm very happy, very honored to have you with us, Professor Hanafi, and I know that we're all very much looking forward to your talk. So whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me to address your audience. It's an honor for me. We're supposed to be in Kazakhstan 2 or 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and we missed the opportunity. So I'm glad, at least now virtually, to be with you. So let me deliver some thought about what kind of post-COVID-19 sociology. We have some premises, but also it's a normative enterprise. I mean, just to remind you that in the Second World War, in the end of Second World War, in France, it was very interesting that a group of activists met regularly and prepare a report for the post Second World War. And I was struck by the title of this report. It's called Les Jours Heureux, the happy days. Actually, often we can take a catastrophe as a occasion trigger to social change toward the best. So this is, in this meaning, I am, if you like, in the same time descriptive, but also normative. So I think your deliberation in the last 2 years, 2 days and a half or 3 days, I should not repeat something about the gravity of COVID-19 pandemic, not as a health crisis, but also as social crisis. And we cannot go back to business as usual, and we need to move toward addressing seriously what ramification of this pandemic. So, for me, I need to insist in my understanding of this pandemic. So, for me, this is not a disease. It is a disease, not only of globalization, but also anthropocene. The greed of a human consumerism is depleting resources that our earth cannot renew. And this virus is but one episode of this consumerism. Such voracious consumerism is induced by the mythological access to happiness, which ultimately serves as an effective accelerator for more health troubles, epidemics, death, and disease and disasters. By the way, my visit to China 5 years ago, I met with a group of scientists that they want really to make to mark this meeting with a sign of distinction. So I do remember eating this weird and rare animal that we know now, bungalow and things like that, and bats, and that trigger this disease. So it is really, this is why I call it mythological access to happiness, because they believe that by eating this kind of things, actually I found that I am the only in the restaurant in the table who eat this, because it's so expensive that they cannot afford to eat it, but they wanted to distinguish me. So in Bordovia, meaning the sign of distinction, this is how they want to introduce the happiness and things like that. So this is really, I live in Lebanon, in a country where literally sinking economically and socially, in collapse, and I see the middle class have this kind of mythical access to happiness through consumerism. When I wrote my text as a candidate of my post president of International Sociological Association, I wrote a piece that has been commented a lot, that criticizing the post-colonial discourse or approach to understand knowledge production, to understand social phenomena, and I asked to supplement it by an anti-authoritarian one, because simply I felt that we cannot throw all our problem to our colonial past. We should look at our face. We have a new elite formation, post-independent, and it's really responsible to what is going on, and the self-censorship of scholars play major role on making our sociology not impactful, if I would say, to our society. Also, I asked to rethink secularism in the frame of post-secularity, and to rethink the paradigm of secularization. So all these issues still valid for post-COVID-19 sociology, if you like. But what today I will put emphasis on two issues: on the logic of sociological analysis, how we conduct it, and the scope of sociology as a vocation. And here I will go beyond Max Weber, science as a vocation. So, first of all, there is an issue of a relationship between nature and society. So, if I will evoke the Australian philosopher Val Plumwood, who rejected the hyper separation between self and other, between humanity and nature. Society and nature are perceived each as a differentiated into separated compartments. But the sphere of nature, culture, politics, social, economy, and religion are indeed traversed by common logics that allow a given society to be encompassed in its totality, exactly like Marcel Mauss and Karl Polanyi did. And this is in contrast with the logic of power and interest embodied in Homo economicus prevented us from being able to see the potentiality of a human being to cultivate gift-giving practices as an anthropological foundation innate within social relationships. Just let me highlight, for instance, the role of medical staff and nurses in this COVID-19. I mean, their sacrifice in favor of their citizens and humanity. Also, so now let me move to let me move to the question of scope of vocation of sociologists. As I said, I will go beyond the Weberian conception. Let me start by French philosopher Gilles Deleuze in 80s. He argued that the left perceived the world in terms of relationships that began from the most distance and moving and zooming in. For instance, taking the case of social inequality has been understood as a global phenomenon of exploitation whose relationship can be traced toward imperialism and colonialism. Thus, many social sciences call for addressing the existence and structure of imperialism and colonialism in order to properly address the suffering of an affected abstract social classes. But this just struggle against the neoliberal order has sometimes eclipsed other struggles located at the bottom. This local level has been invested by identity politics movement, such as religious group, right-wing, far right-wing, conservative one, which view relationship as a beginning from a close point and moving on to the distance. They believe in community work, on family, neighborhood relationship, and so on. And I witnessed in Lebanon a grassroots organization were extremely instrumental and proactive dealing with family who lost their job during the lockdown. You should absolutely not understand my player here against the left, and I belong to the left movement, but it's a criticism to self-criticism to say we cannot keep working in abstract and leaving the bottom to other community-based group working. We need to have this this back and forth movement. So to extend our sociology as a vocation, after Michael Barawi, of course, we need to reinvent. Sorry, not after Michael Barawi. This is my own thought. Reinvent its sociology should reinvent its traditional emphasis that being from the outward in to creating methods that use multi-scale focuses. This includes rethinking the importance of the family and community and the ethics of love, hospitality, and caring, and scaling up to the level of the nation state and the humanity as a whole. So, in fact, Michael Barawi has often insisted that the task of sociology is to stand with civil society against both state and market dominations. This is absolutely crucial. But what I will add here that this to this two other tasks. The first task is expanding the sociological mission beyond civil society. And here I would like to refer to the work of Geoffrey Alexander to extend it to the civil sphere. Civil society is one is only one sphere among others within a broader social system in which the family, religious groups, scientific and corporate associations, and geographically bounded regional communities should be incorporated as they all produce goods and organize their social relations according to different ideals and constraints. This extension of our mission is very important if we are to keep looking at ourselves as a guardian of this civil sphere and the liberal democratic ideals. The second task is to mediate with different non-civil spheres and to engage in dialogue with them and demand certain kind of reform. What are the means of mediations? It is carried out basically through providing cognitive validity claims and normative argumentations to the public spheres, like all the work of John Rawls on this regard. But is this sufficient? We know from a brilliant work of Hans Jones, on values that we need to account for value commitments of social actors, and this includes emotions, which mean it is not enough to simply support those who have liberal democratical ideals. We also need to listen attentively to those who refuse to embrace partially or totally these ideals. Let us remember the excellent work of Arlie Russell Hochschild about rural white Americans in Louisiana. They have turned into Trump supporters, expressing their discontent vis-a-vis globalization and their vision of social inequalities. Before judging them, let us listen, for example, to those who have fear of Syrian and African migrants coming to Europe. With our normative methods, presuppositions, and explicit commitments, I would like here to emphasize our capacity of dialoguing and mediating with non-civil spheres. Against a radically critical social theory, I call for a situated critical one. One that, while criticizing powers, is also able to simultaneously open up dialogue with the very forces it critiques. For example, we can enter into conflict without slaughtering each other. We all need to remember Paul Ricoeur's aphorism in defining what should be our ethics, that being the aim of living the good life with and for others with just institutions. In other words, the ethics of love, hospitality, solicitude, and care with and for others. This is what is practical reason or a notion of a humanity that can be fully expressed in just institutions that ensure social justice and democracy. This convivial way of convincing our sociology as a vocation is an invitation for thinking responsibility before freedom and how to foster and encourage meaningful relationships with our others, fellow human beings, with modesty and open-mindedness. Before cogito, there is hello, said Emmanuel Levinas, the French philosopher. Avant le cogito, il y a le bonjour. But in no way should my focus on the issue of recognition overshadow the issue of redistribution, as Nancy Fraser reminded us in her conversation with Axel Honneth. While our sociological endeavor may provide knowledge on poverty, social inequality, or the extent of refugee issues, it should mobilize emotion and moral impulse, compassion, altruism, solidarity, and activism. The aim is to go beyond describing and criticizing social life toward intellectually constructing a framework for society, a society that incorporates all its citizens while respecting all forms of pluralism without pushing the others into assimilation to cultural majoritarianism. Here, I'm thinking more particularly in how France deals today with the Muslim problem and how these citizens who refuse to be assimilated provide a French society with a mirror, a crooked, passion-laden mirror in which to see a reflection of its own identity and societal problems and its tough conception of secularism. I was extremely struck a few days ago to see a website created by intellectuals and by among them sociologists who signed petition against decolonialism, what they call any thinking about decolonial our knowledge. Although, by the way, I see some abuse of this the colonial discourse, but nevertheless, I don't see it as something we should watch hunting it, and even connecting it to anti-Semitism. So as you see, this is one of the themes of the colonialism is anti-Semitism. So it's really this is how you see a country like France, where now is the sociological community divided so much and more and more entering into conflict, where a party of these sociologists support the right-wing governments to take off grants from those who they call it Islamo-leftist, Islamo-gauchist. Let me now go to my conclusion. First, while sociology underwent a process of disenchantment, that being the emphasis on rationality and rationalization as part of its professionalization in the late 19th and 20th century, it is time to reenchant it through collaboration with moral social philosophy and other social sciences. So this is one of my major claims today. And here, if I refer to role of ISA, the International Sociological Association, is really to theorize and to push for a global sociology, but understood as a set of local tradition of sociological knowledge production. Okay, so let me clarify what is a global sociology. Global sociology require three things. First, a declaration of the positionality of the author and must include their biographies and varying geographies that may affect their vision in relation to sociology. So the question of positionality. So there is no one global sociology. There is a global sociology from Middle East point of view, from Europe point of view, and so on, from French point of view. The second is a comparison, comparatism, that a good methodology that address this various form of state centrism, akin to what late Orlik Beck calls methodological nationalism. The third point of this global sociology is to have a mild universalism. I know many sociologists, they don't like this word and had a bad historical trajectory. But I think there is no sociology without universalism. So this mild universalism, which is not only about combining the global, transnational, and the global with the national, local, particular, but about focusing on the importance of how to start this process from universalism and go to the particularism. So, so what I would like to argue here, that the mild, to have a mild universalism, you need three conditions. First, I am not talking about universal sociology, but I can talk about universal concept, like human, like social classes, like gender and things like that, or values like human rights, women rights, etc. So, to have a universal concept, this concept should be the outcome of a quasi cross-cultural consensus. So it's not because it's invented in a Euro-American context that it become ipso facto universal. The second is not a teleological concept, but a historical experience that gets its normativity as a result of a collective historical learning process. Let us think about democracy, for instance. Democracy has a trajectory that proves its utility. This is why it's universal. It's not because this is a teleological concept that we cannot bring better than democracy one day as a political regime. And the third conditions is to understand any universal concept as an imaginary and not a model to be exported. So if I take the same example, democracy, I do believe that democracy is a universal concept, and this helped me as an activist in the Arab world and in a region, so authoritarian region, to defend this concept. But I don't want the American to come and to write the constitution for Iraqis, nor the Russian to do it for Syria. So, so this is why I call universality as imaginary, but not as a model to be exported. We don't need to export constitution. So if we respect these three conditions, we will have a mild universalism. This is what I would like to end with. So if you like, in nutshell, the post-COVID-19 sociology is a sociology where we reinforce the moral turn of our disciplines. We reinforce the importance of conversing with those we like and we don't like. We respect universality, but a mild one that is not that take sufficiently leave sufficiently space for culture, religion, diversity, pluralism to operate. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Hanafi. That was really an absolutely excellent talk. I know I was getting lots of ideas out of my wrist is a little tired now because I was sitting here taking notes so quickly. That was really excellent. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. I know I have a lot of questions on my own, but I have opened up the chat for those of you who are there. So if you have a question, please just type it in or raise your hand. And while some of those questions are coming in, I'm going to kick it off with one of my own if I can. You emphasize
Michael, can I first apologize that I have a problem? Someone got COVID-19 in the last 2 days in my family, so this is why I didn't attend your conference. I feel so pity that I didn't bring my talk in conversation with what have been said, and I hope it will be. I see it's recorded, so it's a great pleasure to listen to my colleagues and the friend. I see some of them, I know them, Okay, so just I wanted to really to make this apology.
Thank you very much for that, and totally understandable. In fact, it seems maybe you did bring your personal life in conversation with the conference in ways that are not pleasant. So I'm very sorry to hear that that happened, and thank you for still making time today. I really appreciate that. The recordings will be available, so you're welcome to watch them. I've already had people contact me and say they couldn't make it to your talk, but they're really looking forward to it. So thank you, in spite of everything else, for making time for us today. Let me kick you off with the first question here. You emphasize the importance of being in conversation both with those who agree with and those who don't. And I think that's something that's very important. When I was teaching as a graduate student at the University of Maryland, I would frequently try to get protesters who would come to campus and protest X, Y, and Z into the classroom. And people would say to me, you know, you must be crazy. You're bringing these. Westboro Baptist Church was a good example. So the folks who would go around with God hates fags signs and this terrible blasphemy, I'd wanted them in my classroom so students heard the other side of the conversation. So I appreciate that idea of putting different sides into conversation, of listening even when you don't want to hear. But my question is, how can that be done if the other side doesn't want to be a part of the conversation? Can you force a conversation? And perhaps more fundamentally, what if you're speaking different languages? And I don't mean an English-French kind of language. I mean sort of a different epistemological language that we see kind of in the US, I think sometimes, between here are science and facts, and here's Trump's tweet, which is rarely science or fact. How do we put those things into conversation?
Yeah, I think, look, I think talking about United States, Michael, I wanted to go back to the book of Arlie Hochschild, because Arlie Hochschild, the book is amazing, specifically the first 2-3 chapters, talking about how much has pre-constructed idea against this right-wing Louisianian lower middle class group as ignorant, as racist, that she wanted to protect herself before going and things like that. And she realized, no, actually, some of their argument is really very leftist argument, is against a very neoliberal globalization. So already we and in the end of her book, she explained that we cannot conduct sociology from New York and Los Angeles and San Francisco. We need to go to the country. So first of all, I think the misunderstanding, this different elite formation that our society often divided through different lines is so harmful to social cohesion. And social cohesion, this is a key word of Emile Durkheim. If really there is, in late modernity, I think there is 2 key words: social cohesion and pluralism. So we need to stop this different elite formation. I see in the Arab world, in the terrible situation. Take the country of Egypt, that the mistrust between Islamists and leftists is so big that the leftists will ally with the coup d'etat to put not only to take the power, to put the other group in the prison. In Egypt, you have 60,000 people in the prison. So this is, if you like, and of course I can talk a lot about how arrogant the Islamists in Egypt, for instance, that they didn't understand the psychology of those who have afraid about their own individual freedoms. Okay, so again, I think my message that, and specifically as more and more I move into sociology of religion, I see how terrible the both side, they for a protracted period, they didn't talk to each other. And yes, so my reply, my comment, because I don't have a really reply, we don't force conversation. I actually, once we enter into conversation, we will have different paths. Some of it we can deepening go through, and other the mistrust will remain, and we will alleviate it slowly. So this is, if you like, my a nutshell, my reply.
I very much appreciate that answer. I
Yeah,
like that.
can I just to give you, for instance, now it's a very interesting last article I wrote about same-sex marriage, for instance, in the United States, that for the first time that both those who are in favor and against, they use different repertoires of ideas, of arguments, including sociological one. So it's not true that the religious group are so silly that they will throw in our face a verse of Bible or Quran, say, this is written, and basta. No, I think more and more there is the both side, they use a common language, and this will facilitate so much the conversations.
I like that answer. I've given inclusivity, excuse me, seminars before, and one of the lessons I like to push in those seminars is looking for some point of commonality to start the conversation, no matter how far apart you are on some ideological issue. And it can be something meaningful, a point of agreement over something political or religion, or it can be something quite frivolous. So the example I use is, I'm a big fan of Stevie Nicks and Fleetwood Mac. So maybe we have different religions and politics and ideologies, and but maybe we can bond over Stevie Nicks, right? Something meaningless, and then be able to have these other conversations. But getting someone at the table can be the difficult part. And so I think, I appreciate that you include that as an essential part of the future of sociology. It's really critical. We have some questions in the chat here, so I just want to read those. From Alejandro says, thank you, Professor Hanafi. Very interesting reflections. Universities teaching sociology and producing sociological research outside the West keep growing in numbers and quality as compared to 20 to 30 years ago. But I feel the production and publication of sociological research is still pretty dominated by Western institutions and publishers. In the face of a global phenomenon like the COVID-19 pandemic, how can this broader community of sociologists provide responses and analysis that are more inclusive of social realities across the world? What would be one or two practical things that need to change for the type of universal sociology you support?
Yeah, I mean, this is really very important question. And for instance, here where I distinguish the abuse of post-colonial discourse, where created so much dichotomy between us and them, between West and East, between religion and science, between tradition and modernity, and things like that, and if you like, a new thought where really you address this center periphery problems. Let's take, for instance, the work of Farid Attas and Benha Senhat. Both are located in Singapore. Their book, Beyond Canon, they have an excellent recipe. They argue that, in fact, that we cannot anymore say we have enough from Durkheim, Weber, Marx, etc. They are all male, white, and we need alternative. We want to return to Ibn Khaldun, to return to I don't know whom, in your area in Kazakhstan and other area. So he said, no, we need to read Ibn Khaldun with Marx, and not either or. We need to read Nancy Fraser with Fatma Marnisi from Morocco, and so on, like that. I think there is a so structural problem in knowledge production. So I am not romantic. So I still until today the major knowledge, when we look to the map of knowledge production, we still North Africa and North America, Europe and North America are dominating center. But actually, what is very interesting, more and more we see emerging centers. For instance, Turkey become very important in knowledge production. Iran somehow, India, that historically is this is actually my research on knowledge production. So I mean what Brazil, for instance, 20 years ago was not in the map. So things is moving, but slowly. And for each region, I can talk specifically about. For instance, in Latin America, they create a sort of JSTOR for Latino and open access. So they increase so much the citation between them, and they push their scholarship beyond the particularism into a regional thought, and this is absolutely the access to universal or if you like international arena. So I can tailor question. I can talk about each region and how we overcome the structural hurdles.
If I could just follow up on that with a bit of a follow-up question, how do you think brain drain fits into that situation, where we do see a lot of knowledge, the majority still coming out of perhaps Europe and the US, but not always by scholars from Europe and the US, right? It's sort of global scholars competing to get into institutions or to be able to do their research from and about there. Do you think brain drain is a factor there, or that a separate challenge to be overcome?
Yes, but you know, I always do believe that a good sociology is a sociology which operate in the meso level, where you take into account the state approach to this phenomenon, where it can argue as a lost, for instance, that a good talents leave the country and go where is a good labs in North America and Europe. But if you go to the individual centric approach, you see that things is much more complex. I mean, not only about remittances, for instance, but also about the impact of the diaspora in reviving the scholarship. There is a very interesting studies about South Africa, for instance, how in the post-apartheid era, many exiled intellectual who did an excellent career in many interesting hub of knowledge came back to South Africa and revived the academia in South Africa. And if you like, it was the first cohort of Black who were ready to be hired as a professor, because of course living in South Africa, where you cannot dream even to enter a good university if you are Black, you need at least a decade to have more 15 years to have the first one competing with the white elite, if you like. So that the diaspora come and etc. So of course this issue is a big issue. I mean, in France, my master is in epistemology and condition of knowledge production. So we study, one of the flagrant example, Michael, was how the German scientists hosted very easily in United States, because you have a country where receive easily and integrate people to their institution, while France just next to Germany, they have a tough nationalistic regulation. You cannot be hired in CNRS, and CNRS is a French research center, etc. That many researchers, they left to United States. So yes, I would say brain drain, and then there is studies about MIT, for instance, that really it's revived. It become a big center of knowledge production after the Second World War. So again, this is yeah.
No, I think that's. I was also then just thinking of the New School as well, which I believe was founded
Exactly.
after the war. Same idea. Yeah. Let me get some questions from the audience here. Looks like we've got a couple rolling in. Oljas is asking, let me just sort of summarize this. If you could maybe speak a little bit more about the concept of mild universalism, and maybe more of the books or sociologists or philosophers where one could turn to learn more about
that. Yeah, okay. Mild universalism. Look, I think I try really to address the problem, the bad history of this concept, but also I saw every time you start from particular, become like an identity politics paradigm knowledge production. Whether this is under the label of Islamization of knowledge, again, you see, I bring some examples from my region, okay, or if you like, this kind of post-colonial sociology that rejects the other and they want indigenous knowledge. All you cannot address these issues without really going back to say, no, humanity developed some concepts that are really important, that we account for, not only because the globalization make the phenomenon always often go beyond the nation state boundaries, but also because we need to benefit from something established, and not every time to reinvent the wheel. Let me give you an example. I mean, in the Arab region, I cannot buy anymore. I cannot spend so much energy with people who say, look, for cultural reason, a democracy is not, cannot be applied here. For cultural reason, that the woman can be beaten. For cultural reason, the woman, people can torture to get information from. No, so this is why the importance of starting from universalism. But as I talk about women, let's dig here, for instance. Yes, beating women, for instance, violence against women, it's universally, it's a violating universal human rights. But a woman, for cultural reason, wanted to put a veil in her, a scarf in her head. Okay, you cannot say here where you bring a model and not imaginary. You say no, no, you liberated woman, you should remove this veil. And if you don't remove it, we will make all the restriction in the name of another civil religion called laïcité in France, for instance, and we will impose on you what is liberating women. So you cannot go to the public spheres, you cannot be a professor, you cannot be hired in the public sectors with veil. So this is how I show that how universalism is important, but it should be really mild, modest, that it's proved its utility in the ground, not because it's a teleo project and things like that.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I'm sort of conceptualizing this in my head is it's somewhere between a moral imperialism and a cultural relativism.
Exactly, exactly. I am here, if you like, in other words, I reconciliate liberal democracy, which is with all its it's a very dear universal concept of inequality and freedoms, with other traditions where we argue that if you like, that we need to account for our cultural relativism on how we understand freedom and inequality, and equality, if you like. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Another question here, which I think sort of dovetails on this conversation. This is from Duma Khan. Dear Professor, greetings from Kazakhstan. You spoke about democracy as an element of universality. The example you provided on countries really helped me to get the point. The thing I want to elaborate is, should not there be core principles of democracy that countries take as a role model? If each country decides for itself what democracy is, and that can be very different, does it mean that sometimes democracy may not be considered as an element of universality?
No, this is often something I hear it from both a leftist and Islamist group in my region, saying, look, I mean, democracy, which democracy you are talking about? American imperialism as a democracy? French colonial pretending democracy? Yeah, I mean, no, I think we need to admit that first, democracy as a universal concept is not a panacea. Democracy often doesn't resolve the problem of social justice. Social justice need other measures for it. But democracy is where this idea of rotation of power, where the idea of freedom of expression, where the idea that if you constitute a political party, they will not throw you next day in the prison. Okay, this is, if you like, as imaginary. This is a democracy as a principle. Okay, it's rotation of power, it's freedom of political actions, it's a freedom of expression, freedom of having press. This is what is universal. It's not really neither the American models with two Congress, two chambers, etc. I mean, no need to consider this is a universal. Okay. And of course, I mean, again, you can be a Democrat and be very bourgeois and anti-labor movement, etc. I mean, again, if we don't like United States politics, we should not throw it because there is rotation of power. This doesn't have meaning for me to say because they have a rotation of power, because they have a freedom of expression inside of the United States, that become imperialist. No, it's yeah, okay, so what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, good. Gavin has a question in the chat. I'm inspired by the concept of reenchantment. I wonder if you could talk more about how the COVID crisis provides opportunities and incentives, but perhaps also barriers to developing this idea, and how concretely we as sociologists might develop it.
Yeah, actually, this is what I, first of all, reenchantment, it means that we need to acknowledge that any social theory has a metaphysics. Okay, so it's we cannot dissociate metaphysics from social theory, and once you account for metaphysics, here you enter the domain of moral philosophy, emotion, all this aspect. That this is where I think affecting and influencing so much our life. So this is where the reenchantment. The reenchantment is not to say my argument is rational, and by consequences the other argument is irrational, but is to talk like Jean Rawls about what is reasonable. Reasonable, okay. Reasonable, it means that we admit that in ethics that issues are not clear cut, and normativity is related to our ontology. It's related to our experience of encountering the other, Levinas, or our anthropological foundation, this relationship where you have the gift, you have the hug, the care, the solicitude. So this is so much influencing our behavior. This is, if you like, basically what the meaning of reenchantment. Now the issue with COVID-19 is look, I will give a funny example. Now we have a debate inside of the International Sociological Association about whether to postpone our Congress, supposedly to be in 2022 to 2023. And so the issue that we had a survey, and around 1,100 people replied. They wanted to postpone it, to have face-to-face. So I think human being, this want this culture of convivialism, of touching, of face-to-face culture, of hugging, of loving, of so COVID-19 confirmed this, if you like. I don't see this compulsory social distancing. Of course, I mean, again, I'm talking more as a hypothesis to say, I think social distancing is against the nature of a human being. So look, even when people move to look to their mobile while they are in the restaurant, at least they meet in the restaurant, okay? And so I think post COVID-19 will confirm the importance of social not distancing but social closeness, and we go back to the gift relationship between a human being, and that our relationship can be understood as giving, taking back, giving, receiving, and rendering later on. And the beauty of this of Marcel Mauss' study of the gift, where he studied in many societies, to show that in fact there is no obligation of rendering, and even if there is obligation, the amount of rendering is varied. So this is, if you like, the anthropological foundation of our social relationship, and I think post COVID-19 will dig on it, if you like.
I think that there's a lot of insight there.
And again, sorry, Michael, just one word. And this is, of course, you need to push for it. I mean, it will not come alone, okay? You need to go and to push for it, okay? You need, if I talk on my region, okay, Friday sermon preachers, they meet thousands and thousands of people every month, okay, of every week in the Friday sermons, okay? We need to be close to people to advocate for this vision. Otherwise, it will become like a convivial group with the isolated one, and of course, no impact.
I think it's something that's probably we've all become keenly aware of is the importance of exactly what you're talking about. Um, this need to be near people, to be in the same room with people. I like your image of even if you're checking your phone at the table at the restaurant, at least you're at the restaurant. And we haven't been at the restaurant with people in quite a while, literally or metaphorically, I think. I know I've got students with us today, and I've never been in the same room with many of them. And I think probably they do as well, find it a little disheartening, and that we're looking forward to the moments when we can safely be in the same room together. Let me ask, we have a question here from Bexa. Professor Hanafi, speaking of my students, here's one now. Thank you for your lecture. I am an NU student from Kazakhstan. I would like to, NU is Nazarbayev University. I would like to ask your opinion on democracy in the context of Kazakhstan. It is true that democracy is universal. There are no social peculiarities that make democracy impossible. However, there are certainly some aspects such as institutions, wealth, and education level of people that make immediate turning into democracy very hard. Sorry for the question, it's probably not very sociological. He's one of my economics students, so there's a twist there.
Yeah, I am reading, just reading the last sentence, but rather lead to, I mean, no, dear, exactly. I mean, you know, I grew up in Syria, in a country similar to Kazakhstan, okay? And I was born where there is a president, his name is Hafez al-Assad, and I'm afraid I will die while his son is still in the power, okay? And this is a republic. So I think it's the harm of non-rotation of power. Of course, the harm of non-rotation go much beyond the harm of rotation. Rotation of power, where you ensure people are not alienated and people believe that one day they can become according to their merits. Of course, the problem of protracted authoritarianism, that it makes the social change so difficult, the political change. And this is actually, if you like, I am very careful about revolutions. This is why, if you remember in my talk, I call about not radical criticism, but situated criticism. What the meaning situated criticism? That in fact, yes, you want to be sure that the replacement of authoritarianism is not anarchy. Okay, so and you need to not to do what the American did in Iraq, de-Ba'athization, for instance. You need to extend your hand even to elite that corrupted and spend so much time in the power. So you need to be subtle in a way to smoothen any transition. But you cannot, especially if you define yourself as a student, it means young. If you young people say no hope of political change, just I will and worse, if you say no, this is the specificity of an Islamic majority country like Kazakhstan or something like that. This is really where I found so misleading this kind of argument. Again, I'm not saying you said it, but I'm saying that you can at least acknowledge the importance of democratic values, this rotation, freedom of expression, etc., etc. In the same time, acknowledge the difficulty. So at least you have an ideal in front of you. You know, I am Palestinian refugees. I grew up in a refugee camps in Syria. I have as ideal is one-state solution for the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. But in the same time, I know it's so unpopular among two nationalist groups, the Palestinians and the Israelis. So if you like, while I am working in the framework of two-state solution as an expert on refugee issues, for instance, for 15 years, I was working in the refugee issues and how to resolve it in the framework of two-state solution. But I have always one ideal, something ideal in my head, a kind of a secular one-state solution, a state for all its residents, no matter come from Poland in the past or come from or indigenous from the land. Okay, so if you like, you student, if you student you say it's no, I'm afraid, etc. So your professor Michael Rayon would be more conservative and say in my age, sorry, I don't know your age, Michael, but I'm just talking about generation student professor. So no, please, I mean, again, democracy is really is a universal. It's something proved. Look to the countries, look to Latin America, how revived after the democracy. Look to Tunisia, look to South Africa, and so on.
Thank you for that answer. We're running a little over time, and I don't want to keep you, but I do want to throw out one last question, if I could.
Yeah, so you could. I mean, I have time.
a sort of running, it's a joke, but kind of not a joke, that's been occurring over the last couple of days, is that I like to ask the presenters in each session, do you think things will get better? Do you think we've learned lessons from COVID-19 and that somehow the future, there's a possibility for a fundamental systemic change in the more just direction? And the joke has been no, that we're sociologists, we're inherently pessimistic, we don't see much hope. I'm also myself kind of in that doom and gloom camp, but someone who wants to find optimism. So I'm wondering sort of your thoughts on that. Are sociologists inherently pessimistic? Do you see optimism potentially coming out of the pandemic, that we're learning some of the lessons that you've talked about of coming together, finding compassion, conversations, no longer taking for granted, sharing physical space? In short, in a post-pandemic world, do you see room for optimism for society and for sociology as a discipline?
You know, this is really, Michael, where I keep insisting that hope can come only from our moral philosophy. Okay, moral philosophy, I mean, loving the other, responsibility before the freedom, live with and for the other. This is, if you keep this as in your horizon, this really make you at least optimism of the will and Gramscian meaning, if you like. So it's no matter how you are pessimist in the intellect. You see that as our dear student who said, look, I'm afraid of anarchy in case we engage and struggle for democracy. Yeah, but I want you to appreciate that how do we live with the others? How we not as a boss, not dominate the other. So if you keep this in your mind, this is where you will give you light of hope. Okay, and let me here maybe insist about, when I talk about moral, when I talk about morality, of course, I compass it or eclipse it to moral philosophy, but also there is other sources of morality come from religion, and the importance of religion sometimes that really they train you on hope. train you that you need to fast in order to remember the poor. Okay, someone can say religion can create so much divided and civil war, etc. It's also true. I'm not saying that religion sociologically reduced to one aspect, but just to say that, in fact, here in optimism come from our will. We want to change. We want to change for the other, for the poor, for the marginal people. This is where you come the hope. Otherwise we can sink with our structural struggle, if you like. That all the time I look to my position as a non-owning means of production and cursing those who earn the means of production. This is not helpful at all. I mean, you should be aware of domination, but life can be transgressed not only by slaughtering each other, also by maybe come and discuss and mediate and dialogue. This is you see here how I connect things together. So this is where you bring hope, by dialoguing, by look to the face. You know, the Levinas, when talk about the face, I mean, when your humanity come when you look to the face of your human being and things like that.
I think you just brilliantly provided the answer to the question that's been haunting us for the entire session in my career as a sociologist. So thank you for sharing that. And I think that that's a great place to end the keynote for today. It's a great place to end the conference for the last 3 days, is on that note of hope and optimism. Because we have heard a lot of doom and gloom. And as I was mentioning in my comments this morning, it's important to recognize the doom and gloom, but to try to find these shards of hope in it. So I like ending this with that hopeful message. I also want to thank you again very much, Professor Hanafi, for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure hearing you, a real honor to have you join us. So I really appreciate that. And thank you
for all. And again, I apologize, I was not with you all the conference. Yeah, thank you so much.
We'll invite you to Kazakhstan soon, and you can make it up to us by
with the pleasure. I just take the first shot of my vaccine.
Very good. So thank you again to everyone for joining us. It was a really great conversation. I really enjoyed it. I hope you all did too. And thank you for taking part in the conference. And I look forward to continuing these conversations in the weeks and months and years to come. So thank you, everyone.
Bye. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.